Hello there and welcome back. I'm in the van today. It's always a great thing being in the van. I always enjoy it. It feels so adventurous, but we're not going for a big trip today. We're on a local trip southwest of Edinburgh to a place called Colinton. And Colinton's great because it's got the main river that runs through Edinburgh, the Water of Leith. And it goes through Edinburgh and then out into the Forth. And we're going to have a go at painting that. It's just a question of getting all the gear now and getting it all sorted, which is one of the big challenges for watercolour painting. I think getting out the house is one of the really big challenges. Once you're out, you're fine, but there is a lot of equipment to take. You can see inside the van at the moment, there's tripods, there's a couple of bags, my painting gear, my boards, so a fair amount of stuff to take with us, and makes it even more with all the photographic gear. 1, 2, 3, 2 tripods. Lock the door and we're away. That's a lovely sight there, really good, like that. Right, that really wasn't very far away from the camper van, which is great, and we found this little bay here which is fun, and it has a view of the bridge and the water, which is quite noisy, so we'll see what happens. So let's have a look at it. Right, here we are. Here's our location for today, and it's really interesting. We've got the rushing stream going by and this big viaduct, the main road through Colinton. And we found this little beach area, so that's really convenient. We need space when we paint because I've got to put my easel up, but Tanya's also got to be able to move around me, so it's a really important consideration to find a place like this, almost like a beach here. I wouldn't want to sunbathe here though. Okay. I'm all set up now and ready to go, and I thought I'd just show you my new watercolour setup. I did mention it a couple of programs ago that I was changing a bit. If you remember before, I had a big table here which held my water and my brushes, but I've changed that really just because of weight. I found that I'm carrying so much more stuff than I used to, in like video cameras and tripods and things like that, so this is a way of just making it lighter for me. If I wasn't doing videoing, I would have just kept it the same. There's no problem at all, but it's a good system still. I'm looking forward to trying it out. As always, what I'm going to do to start with is my little sketch on my 5x4-inch sketch pad. Only a little sketch pad, I don't need any more than that. And it's really just to work out where things are going in the picture, to help me with the composition when I have a bigger sheet here. And I find that really useful, and I wouldn't want to start a complicated picture without it. Right, so I'm just trying to get the sketch down really. So I've worked out from here where it's going to go, or I've placed the first arch just to the slightly right of the picture. And what this drawing does for me as well is that it familiarises me with the scene as well, which I found really helpful. Anything that helps you in watercolour painting is worth the effort to do, because it is quite a difficult thing, watercolour. I'm all set up now, the drawing's done, and I'm ready to go. And this is the really interesting part of landscape painting and painting in general, really, in that you have to have a sort of battle plan about what you're going to do next. How are you going to start it? Where are you going to move from first and second and third and fourth? And I'm in my mind, I'm going over that now, trying to work out the order of things, which is so important. Right, so here we go. I'm looking at working from top to bottom really. So the top of it is the bridge. So ultramarine blue. Well, the top of it's the sky really. So maybe I'll have a little bash at the sky. So cobalt blue there, and a light wash of that. I'm going to make sure when you have a plain wash, just one colour, that the colour's all mixed in. Otherwise you can have some lumps in there. Right, okay, so there's the sky going in. not much sky, so that's why I almost forgot it. That's good enough. And then we have the top of the bridge. A bit more sky. Right, now the top of the bridge is quite a dark value, so it's ultramarine blue and a little bit of burnt umber. The first part of the painting is always the trickiest part. It always designs a little bit of courage. Right, here we go. A bit more water. Okay, there's the top. It's nice. And then drying times, you've always got to work in the drying times. You don't want to paint too quickly over that because it would just smudge all over the place, which you don't want. It's the right shade though. So now for the bit underneath it, which is much darker. Okay, so I'm using my little mop brush. Might come back to, it needs to be a little bit darker. One of the interesting parts of watercolour painting, it always looks so wrong until it's finished. So you just got to get your mind around that. Right, so now into the rest of the bridge. It's always looking at the subject. So the rest of the bridge is much warmer. So there's a there's blue in it, but there's also a yellow. So raw sienna is going to come into it, and we're going to bring this into it here. So a warmer tone is going to go all the way through it. It's going to be an impression, really, this painting, and it's going to be done very quickly because it just needs to. It's got to be simplified. If I don't simplify it, I'm never going to do it. So we're going to work as fast as I can now. Interesting colours in the bridge, all sorts. Trying to get those in, sort of browny colours here. Trying to vary the colour as much as you can. So there's a bit of cobalt blue going down the side there. And you can see that. That's quite effective. Cobalt going here as well. Maybe I'll pick a bit of the water up there. Really interesting colours. It's not dark. There's a very light blue coming on the inside. But trying to vary that colour as much as I can. Yep. Now, getting the darkness in to the top. So trying to mix a darker shade and then pop it in. Right. On the other side. It's so intense, watercolour painting. That's one of the reasons I like it so much. Okay. Now into the third arch. That darkness coming in, just trying to work out, yep. So just trying to be quick, really, and paint in the masses first. So I'm doing the pyramid technique where I try and paint everywhere as much as possible, a broad base, and then I carry on to the details. So painting everywhere at first. Lots of colour. Changing the colour all the time, working on different things now, so getting back to the burnt umber and ultramarine blue to get the dark sections in. Dark bit of watercolour, water there. It's quite interesting. Every painting requires a different process, really. That's what I noticed. It's a sort of brown water, it's not blue at all. So I'm going into the water now and trying to get some of the colours of that. There are patches of bluer colours reflecting from the sky. So I'm trying to get those in, the sort of highlights really. And then there are wonderful patches of light shimmering off the water. So I'll go into my white paint at the end to catch those completely. In here. So it's really just trying to paint the whole thing, really, if I can. Beautiful. Green trees. Yellow in there as well. Very aggressive style at the moment. So trying to get around everything. Hopefully you can have a go at this yourself. Sort of appreciate what it is to paint in watercolour outdoors. It's totally different from indoors. It's much more seat of your pants sort of stuff. Okay, I'm going to go more into the bridge now. Still using my mop, haven't changed brush at all. Trying to darken off those top values. Always looking really carefully at the subject. Okay, just really trying to look carefully at what I'm doing here. That's the most important thing I can do, is to look. Try and get the shapes coming forward. More blue now. Okay, so just trying to work on the little bits of architecture in the bridge. Just trying to bring out the structure of it, which is pretty important. I feel it's really sort of moving on there. It feels like it's sort of looking like the bridge now. Getting the values right is so important, and you can see that this is basically a value study. So trying to get the right tones in all the time. And then it's a question of capturing the little details as well. So it's back to the pyramid idea, that it's really trying to work to a fine point. So, but at the moment, you can see I'm using quite a big brush. I haven't stopped using that big brush yet. Always chopping and changing colours. Ooh, that's a lot of colour there. It's always nice being outdoors that I can flick that brush. So just working again all around the picture again, trying to get this bottom left-hand side, which I think is going to be the problem with this painting. Trying to bring something out. There's sort of bank of ivy coming in there. Lots of leaves. Now there's a pathway going up to the left, which I'm going to try and put in. So it's a bluey sort of colour, not green. And then it's back to green at the other side, the path. Right, you can see I've covered the painting now, pretty much. So that's a relief. Right, so the next steps to do. I've changed my brush to my big Raphael number 14, away from the mop now. So that's the mop done. The mop really just does a lot of detail, a lot of blocking in. Now I'm looking to try and see where I can improve the painting. I'm going into the details more, I think. Okay, so maybe into the rocks. So the rocks in here. Lots of tiny rocks in the water. I can do a few of them, but obviously not all of them. I'll change my brush to a smaller one. So there's darker rocks going over. So trying to work out the shapes of them and then giving them a dark side, a mid-tone and a shadow. Yeah, that's working well. Lots and lots of little rocks. So I think rocks make a scene. I think rocks are really important. They're a good foil to a subject. Lots of rocks. There are so many of them, but I think it's important to get as many as you can. Gives sort of nice perspective to the whole composition. Now trying to get the darks of them in. You can't just keep them as blobs, you've got to describe them a bit more than just blobs. Yeah, that's fun, and I really enjoyed doing those. Right, going into the details now really, the sort of, see I've done the rocks there, which I think have turned out quite nicely. Still got a bit of work to do on them when it's a bit drier, just to give them that more three-dimensional look about it. Each one has to have at least 3 values on it. There. Hopefully that looks like rocks. Now we're going to come up to the bridge again. Try and get some of these different colours in. So many subtle colours. Sargent was very good at values, and he could see and place values onto a subject incredibly well. No one did it better. Just giving a few dashes now of the sort of the tones within the actual bridge, bringing them out. Sort of in stripes. It's sort of where the water has, or the water seeped through the bridge. It's created these stripes. I'm trying to get in. It does vary a lot. It's not just one single tone in there. And it just sort of comes down there. A lot of variation there. Just going to get some of the darker bits in this water now. It really does darken off and lighten off. It's not really watercolour, it's more brown. Burnt umber, really. Now a bit of burnt sienna, a red colour coming through. This point here. Water's not always blue. Right, just going to go to the other bridge now and try and just darken that off, just trying to get some of the shapes. So it's a sort of stripes that come into it. And it is a brickwork, but again, with simplicity, there's only a certain amount of detail you want to go into, really. Otherwise, you just lose that lovely loose feel, which is so attractive. And that's certainly something I don't want to do. Okay, I'm going to try and get some of the bigger trees in now. There's this big tree here that really is quite a sight. It's going to come in. It's not covered in ivy, this tree. Interesting. There's another one coming at the back. You can get the sort of ivy colours coming out of it too. Trying to give it a sense of ivy being on it. Okay. Don't like ivy much. It's not something I really like. My grandfather didn't like it either. He used to hack it off as many trees as he could see. All the branches coming off. Might change my brush again to a smaller one. Sort of twigs that are coming off, little branches. Dark bits coming in the trunk of the tree. Really dark. Wet, that paint. Just trying to get all these little details to come into it. Trees are an interesting thing to do. They're quite difficult in watercolour to get that tree impression that we want, without going into tiny detail. Remember the mantra, keep it simple. Trying to give the impression of things. So with the bridge and it's got thousands of bricks in there, but I really don't want to depict them. I think that will lead me into never finishing the picture, and I want to finish the picture. So I'm going to try. I just want to try and hint at the bricks, really, just to give it. So there are bricks there, but I'm not going to go into them. One of the really great stories that I remember from Edward Weston, who was wonderfully good at simplifying things. He was on a holiday with his daughter in Cornwall, and there was a guy painting a bridge and a brick bridge and a brick building, and he very gently went behind him and said, "You missed a brick," and that sort of summed up his humour as well. He was a funny guy, but he never painted things like that. He would always simplify it to an incredible degree. He was really great at that. Next stage is the tree. Sort of a bluer tree in the distance here. I'm going to try and give. Just as a foil to that front tree. And then we've got some trees over here. Whenever I paint, I often think of the people who came before me, like the Sargents and the Wessons of the world, and just imagine them doing the picture, how good they were, Sargent being the best. And then to the other side of the bridge. Got these trees coming out. It's a bit awkward for me because I've got to stretch across the tripod, the camera tripod. Right, okay, so I've done the right half, and now I've got to work towards the left half of the scene. I'm going to try and include some of these. This ivy here, it's a sort of speckled effect that I'm going to try and get. Not the easiest of effects. So sort of dabby, trying to get something going there. Trying to imagine the ivy, the thousands of leaves, really. But you don't want to be too literal as well. Just try and bottom right hand corner, left hand corner, that needs something there. Needs something to start to happen. I say back to the pre-Raphaelites, they were amazing because they could always they made every part of the painting important, which I do like. That's a really good idea. So now I'm going to try the trees now, and the trees on the left, so they trying to get that sort of shape on. Trees aren't the easiest things in the world. They can look very false at times, not right at all. So yeah, that's an interesting problem. Trying to look at them carefully. That one's going off at an angle. It's a bit wet. Yeah, that's okay. Then we get this smaller brush here to indicate some of the smaller branches. So there's a branch coming off here. It's a bit thick. Massive tree in the back. Hope you can hear the sound clearly. There's a rushing river behind or in front of me. So hopefully that's okay. So burnt umber, ultramarine blue, and a big tree coming in here. And it's got, again, it's just covered in ivy. Don't like ivy. So much of it. Yeah, I don't really know how to. A few bits of ivy here and there. So just mixing a few colours for the branches coming in the background. It's more of a bluer branch. Trees at the back, they have that distance in them, so I'm going to paint them a bit bluer. So many branches coming off here. So I'm going to tackle the roof now, here, and I'm just going to put a little bit of cerulean blue on it. Hopefully that'll be enough difference to give it the sense of the roof. This little gap here. Hope you're getting the impression of the speed at which I'm doing it as well. There is no hanging around in watercolour. So up at the top of the picture there's some railings, on the top of the bridge there's some railings, so I think it's quite nice to put some of those in, really. It gives it a sense of something else happening. So some big railings intermixed with some finer ones. Ooh, loads of them. Just to give a hint of them. Yeah, I think that works. So just going down to this right hand corner here, which is the weakest part of the painting. Just trying to get something happening. Just trying to depict the plants, ivy and bits and bobs coming in. I've squeezed some of my white paint out now, and just a gouache white. And it's time to add the sort of highlights, which I think works so well with gouache paint. Trying to give the water a sense of movement as it comes down. Really vibrant patches of light. Lots of, as it goes through the sort of rapids over there. The white paint adds quite a lot to this painting in that there's a lot of reflections in the water. So that's what I'm mainly trying to get to grips with, those reflections as the water and the rapids of it travel down. So many of these little reflected lights, which are so beautiful. I do like white paint, but a lot of people don't like white paint. Let me know what you think about white paint. It's quite an interesting topic. And you've got a little waterfall here. Down here. It's almost like black lines almost. Some people use, when they paint buildings, they add a lot of black to it, and it's a little bit like that, I guess. Lots of little dabs of paint. This isn't what someone like Edward Weston would do at all. He didn't paint like this in terms of white. He shunned white paint a lot. So that I'm not so convinced about. I think it's a useful thing. But we're all different. We all got our little pleasures. The ivy is a bluer colour. Maybe a little cerulean blue there. Little dabs of it. Everywhere really. There's so many leaves. I can only do some of them though. And you got some greenery on the rocks here. The moss, where the moss is collected. So on the bottom left here, that adds a little bit of interest. You've got wild garlic, and it has a white flower to it. And the smell of it is amazing. If only you could smell this. Really lovely. If you like garlic. A few bits of pieces here. So that's the white garlic going in. Now what we've got to ask, we've got to step back from it a bit and say, have I done it now? And yeah, I look at it and I think, well, is there anything more I could do? Yeah, I could do lots of things, but I don't think I will. I think that's pretty much good enough for me. It's got the impression of it, which is what I like, and I like it seems to have its three-dimensionality to it. Maybe I could give the hint of that arch coming through a bit more on the left. So it's there. Yeah, and I would say that's it. Right, so last but not least is the signing of it. James Potter. There we go. I'm not going to do any pencil work to this picture. I don't think it needs it. It's so complicated as it is, I think it wouldn't mean anything. So here's the painting all finished, and it was a real challenge, that one. It took a little bit longer than normal as well, partly because there's so much in it, and it's not the typical landscape that I paint. It's very full of stuff from the bottom to the top. It's full of stuff, unlike many of my landscapes where it can have a big sky or a wide open scene. It's very different from this sort of picture, but I did like that sort of thing, and I quite like a picture where the whole piece of paper is filled with interest, and also I sense that there's a nice sense of three-dimensionality to the painting, and if you can have that in a picture, that really helps it too. To really feel that you can go into the painting is a real pleasure to it. So I hope you like that, and I hope you like the demonstration of it, and the noises as well. It's such an amazing place to be. Anyway, I look forward to seeing you next time, and I hope you can subscribe to me or make a comment or a thumbs up. That really helps, and I look forward to seeing you next time. Bye bye.